Now, the first thing we're going to cover is how human memory works. There's three portions of human memory or three steps. First, encoding, consolidation, and retrieval. So as it states here, encoding is when your experiences are converted into a neural code by forming and strengthening connections between neurons. Consolidation, on the other hand, is when these neural connections are stabilized. This happens specifically during sleep. That is why sleep is so important. But obviously, both of us would be massive hypocrites for saying to sleep when we barely sleep.
I think
Now,
we're
it is
focused on
during,
encoding.
yeah, we're so focused on encoding, skipping the consolidation part. But yes, it is during sleep where specifically it's REM, so rapid eye movement sleep, and deep sleep, where short term memory gets converted to long term memory. But we've all heard the concept neurons that fire together but wire together. That is essentially retrieval. So you need to constantly reactivate your brain's neural networks to recall the stored information. Now, this is actually the basis of how spaced repetition works. And we're also going to go through something called the memory forgetting curve a bit later on to go more in depth onto that. Now, usually what you'll see is it'll be encoding, storage, retrieval, and then you'll go back to encoding. It's more of a cycle than like a three-step process. Because sometimes you'll
Mhm.
forget information and then you have to re-encode it, storage, and then retrieval. Does this make it sense? Any questions?
Yeah, happy. Sounds like a positive loop.
Yes, sir. It is definitely a positive loop, not a negative feedback loop like in homeostasis. Most of the times in homeostasis, it's a negative feedback loop.
That's true.
Sir, the next thing we're going to go through is a big house, a big house, Ebbinghaus. I don't know how to say his name. Forgetting curve.
Yeah.
So the forgetting curve, if you look through the x and y, so the x I'm pretty sure is the independent variable and the y is the dependent variable, right?
Sure. Yeah. Mhm.
What's on the y, which is the variable that's going to change, is your retention of the information, and time is going to be on the x-axis. So now what's going to happen over time is your memory is actually going to decay or decrease. So if you're not constantly reinforcing information at certain intervals, like here, here, and here, you're actually going to forget that memory over time.
The curve, as far as I know, it flattens with each repetition. Is that correct?
Exactly. Exactly. So how you stagnate or slow this process is actually spaced repetition, as Jarir said. So as we alluded to previously, let's say you look over information 2 days later, or let's say 3 days later. Then what's going to happen is the curve is going to stagnate. Then you're going to review the information 7 days later, the curve will stagnate. Or not necessarily stagnate, it'll plateau or flatten out.
Mhm.
So then you'll remember the information for a longer period of time. Any questions? Or am I like pulling
No.
stuff out of
Do
my
you
bum?
do you have, another graph where it shows that retention?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Perfect. Let's go.
Trust. My man came prepared. Came prepared. Now that
There we go.
next graph is right there. Now, what
Mhm.
spaced repetition is it's combating the decay in memory by reinforcing memories at those intervals. At this, you can see it's 1 day, 3 days, 6 days. So the goal of spaced repetition is to actually flatten that curve. So the information can stay in your head for a long time. Now, usually the process is you'll consume knowledge. That knowledge over time, through learning it from different angles, will turn into understanding, and that understanding will turn into wisdom, which will seep through your experience. Now, that is actually the goal of medical school or school in general. But genuinely, we can talk about this in another video. That isn't always the case.